Welcome to Authentically You, the podcast where we explore the amazing stories of women who are walking out their Christ-centered purpose in very impactful ways. Some as business owners, nonprofit founders, creators, CEOs of their own homes, and more. I'm your host, Malia Evans, and today we have a very inspiring story to share with you. Let's meet LeEllen Smith, founder and CEO of OutsideIn, a nonprofit organization, a social enterprise that not only designs and manufactures luggage, carrying bags, and other essentials, but it offers a lifeline to women recovering from addiction. Through her company, through her social enterprise, LeEllen provides meaningful employment and support to those on the path to recovery. And her dedication goes even further. She and her husband recently donated their own home to be used as a transitional residence for women rebuilding their lives. LeEllen's journey of turning compassion into action is definitely one you're not going to want to miss. Join us for this inspiring and moving episode as we'll dive deep with LeEllen into her journey from the beginning days of starting a social enterprise, making baby gowns out of used t-shirts, to today opening a recovery house and operating a very successful manufacturing facility that provides jobs to the women in recovery. We'll uncover the challenges that she faced along the way, the triumphs that she has celebrated with the OutsideIn participants and their families, and the faith that has anchored her every step of the way. Get ready to be inspired, encouraged, and empowered to pursue your own big dream with faith as your compass and courage as your guide. This is Authentically You, where faith meets entrepreneurship, nonprofit leadership, or just dreaming of doing big things, and where every venture is grounded in the belief that with God, all things are possible. I'm Malia Evans, your host, and I am so glad you're here. I'll see you on the inside. Are you looking to start or grow a business in Northwest Tennessee? If so, the Mill Workspace Entrepreneur Center is the starting point for business in our region. They offer one-on-one counseling for startups and growing businesses as well. They also offer educational one-time workshops and multi-week business acceleration classes for all Northwest Tennessee residents. Whether you're thinking of starting a small retail business or you're looking to scale an e-commerce business nationwide, they are there to help. If you're ready to get started, you can schedule an appointment on their website at themillworkspace.com. LeEllen, I am so excited to have you here with us today, here in the studio, this beautiful studio at the Mill Workspace in Dyersburg. Thank you so much for making the trip to Dyersburg to meet with me in person. It's been an honor and an exciting few weeks meeting with you and kind of talking over our talking points for today. And what better month than National Recovery Month. September is National Recovery Month and Recovery Awareness Month. And boy, do you have a story to tell about that. So let's just dive in. How about that? LeEllen Smith, ladies and gentlemen, with us here today. So you are the founder of a social enterprise.
Correct.
So tell me a little bit about the story behind what inspired you to start a social enterprise, how it started, what it was when it started, and then we'll work our way in the conversation into where it is today. Well, so tell us about a social enterprise and what that actually is.
Okay. I do find I have to explain that sometimes because people are not overly familiar with that term. But a social enterprise is a business like other businesses, except it's more concerned with making a difference rather than making a profit. So that's what sets us apart. As our main goal is not to actually make money, but to make a difference. And we do that by coming along marginalized women in our community to empower them through meaningful employment. Making something with your hands is good for your head, and we found that out. And so that's how we do it there at OutsideIn. My husband says I'm highly successful at being a nonprofit.
Not profitable. You mean my husband would say the same thing about this venture.
Oh, well.
Oh, well. Making a difference, right?
That's right.
Making a difference. So tell me, so I came to know about OutsideIn is the name of the social enterprise, correct?
Outside In.
And so I came to know about that several years ago.
I couldn't remember
when
how
I
we
was
met.
director of the Small Business Development Center.
Okay.
You, I believe, were the client of my colleague who was director of another center. And so it was such a unique story back then because it was some pretty humble beginnings at first.
Sure.
You weren't doing at all what you were
No.
doing now.
No.
So tell us a little bit about how it actually started.
Okay.
What was it when it started?
Well, I think the thing that set me on this course was probably when my husband did become the General Sessions Judge in Obion County. And we began to realize what a deficit there was in the area we live in recovery support services and treatment and those kind of things. And it just got me to thinking, well, if we need that in our area, why don't I just start it? You know, I'm a problem solver by nature, and I just thought, well, if we need a recovery center for treatment for women or whatever, why don't I just start one? But then I realized a very important thing, and that was that I had no skill set. I didn't know anything about social work or recovery or counseling or any of the things. So anyway, it was a foolish idea, but it sparked an idea that was good, and that was to begin a social enterprise because having a job is a big deal. And women who've experienced addiction or incarceration often find that there are huge barriers to them in mainstream employment. So the idea was to bring these kind of women into this workplace that was nurturing and encouraged, and they could learn better workplace attitudes, behaviors that would take them out into the mainstream and just be sought after employees. So I'm not a risk taker by nature. So I wanted to start a manufacturing enterprise. I remembered that I did have a business degree. I should be able to do this. Yes. And I'd been sewing since I was about 12 years old. So that was kind of the thing that I thought I could do. I remember every little town in this area used to have a manufacturing, a sewing
apparel,
operation.
A textile.
And I remembered those days and that people did like to do that kind of work. And so, but not a risk taker, so I couldn't see myself clear in buying a lot of equipment or expensive fabric. So we started using donated T-shirts as our raw material. Now, I look back on those days now, and I have to smile because our products were, let me just say, not sophisticated at all. But, you know, we did make some really cool things, and our community did support us really well through those days. And yes, humble beginnings, sums it up in a word, I think.
Started making little baby dresses.
We made little girl dresses, skirts, scarves, bow ties,
headbands. I remember some headbands.
You name it. We tried. I even made a pair of boxer shorts one time
out of a t-shirt.
Out of a t-shirt. That I didn't think there was much future in that product.
And now it's a completely different operation.
It is
with a full-flown boutique style.
Right. We've rebranded twice since the beginning, and that's quite the task. But the thing we have settled on is fabric travel gear. Mm-hmm. We make garment bags and tote bags and weekender bags, and now we're making backpacks and sling bags and purse-like bags. Lots of different products that are just really conducive to especially car travel, weekend trips and things like that. Mm-hmm. And they're all made out of upholstery weight fabric.
Beautiful products too. And just for those, we'll go ahead and just touch on it now. Shameless plug for the shop.
Yes.
They can buy online.
Yes. The website's OutsideInWorks.com.
OutsideIn with one N.
Mm-hmm.
Works.com, because we'll talk about
in
with two N's here in just a few minutes.
There's one of those too.
Or the shop, the beautiful shop in a fabulous old
Getting
historic
the old
building.
Store was just really, really just such a boost for us. We love that old store, and cowbell rings when you come in the door, and I still have to pinch myself every day that we got a hold of that.
Beautiful building, downtown historic Troy, Tennessee.
Yep,
if you're ever in Northwest Tennessee, stop by Outside In and be sure and pick up something and support that enterprise while you're there. So tell me a little bit about the challenges that you faced launching a nonprofit, especially a nonprofit, knowing that the intention was to provide services and to provide
Right.
impact.
Well, you think you're doing something for the good, for the greater good. People will buy it because of that, and I guess in those early T-shirt days they did. But you really do have to come up with a product that's viable in the marketplace. You can't really just survive on, look at us, we're doing something good in our community. And in the beginning, we always knew that for the social enterprise to succeed, it would have to be an online venture. We would have to be an e-commerce site. And so that really has been the biggest challenge, is just getting noticed online, developing a good website for e-commerce, publicizing what we do on our social media, and just really getting attention to what we do. That's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, and social media actually has really kind of come on scene.
It really has.
You were the cart before the horse.
Well,
really.
I was trying,
yeah.
but it's a never-ending struggle to keep up.
And it changes daily. Changes daily. But you're doing such a great job.
Thank you.
Doing such a great job. So, what is the core mission of the enterprise again?
Well, the core
let's
mission
state that again.
has always been to empower marginalized women through the creation of whimsical products and meaningful employment. And that pretty much covers the things we're all about: empowerment, meaningful employment, and the fact that we're working with women who are vulnerable for many different reasons and have been marginalized often because of those same reasons.
So we touched a moment ago then the jobs. That's one way you're supporting the women. We touched a moment ago, very, very kind of a teaser about the word in outside in.
Yeah.
And so something that has changed a bit just in the last 2-3 years, really in the last few months,
Yes.
Is a new venture, a new division,
A project.
So to speak.
We just call it a new project of what we do. Well, yeah. So remember that part about where I thought I should open a recovery residence. Well, I really, the thing that, of course, stopped me in my tracks, aside from knowing I didn't have the skill set for it, was just thinking, well, somebody else will do that. Somebody else will do that does have the skill set. Well, that was 10 years ago.
Right.
And nobody else has done it. And the need has become even greater. There are no centers like that in Obion County at all, nor in Weakley County or Lake County for women. Here in Dyer County, they're very fortunate to have Transitions, which is an excellent facility. So in 10 years, nobody's done it. And I just kind of kept circling back to that in my mind, like, what we need this. We need this, and why don't we do this? Why didn't somebody do this? And nobody did. And I guess at the same time realized that OutsideIn as a social enterprise just wasn't having the impact that it could have if we maybe added a residential piece to what we were doing already. Often you'll see recovery residences, things of that nature. They'll start an endeavor to come alongside women with recovery supports. Then they realize they need an employment piece to go along with it, because it's difficult to send women out in the mainstream when they're struggling with all these different issues. So if you can keep them in an environment where they're really getting poured into and empowered, it just helps that process go smoother. So I realized we already had the social enterprise. We already had that in place, and as a very ongoing concern. And so we're kind of going about it in a different way than many people do that do
you
this
had the
kind of work.
Employment piece first,
Exactly.
but
So
not the not the social and psychosocial
That's right.
piece of it.
So we're kind of going about it a little bit different, but I think the way we're approaching it is going to be is going to be a good way, because we've already got this product, we've already got our systems in place for how we make what we do. So I'm excited to have that. Well, I thought we needed a recovery residence. Where would we get a recovery residence? And then I thought, my house would be a great recovery residence because it was big. Our 4 children were grown, and for years we'd just been all over that place. Like, there's 4 kids. They had friends. We had youth ministers live there during the summer. There's people in and out all the time. And then it wasn't.
Yeah, and it was just you and Judge Smith.
It was way too much space for 2 old people who wanted to travel more. So, but, when we built the house, it was my dream house. I worked on it every day with the carpenters that were there. And we always told each other, we said, we're going out here feet first. This is it for us, where we're going to be.
Yeah.
And so I knew that it would be crazy to say to him, hey, I think I want to move out of this house and make it a recovery residence.
And let other women move in.
I could only imagine how that was going to go down,
Yeah.
Anyway, I just kept that to myself. I thought, no, I'm never going to work up the courage to do that. And he would think I was really off the rocker. So anyway, I didn't. But one day, coming back from Nashville, we had been in church that morning, and I guess, heard a particularly inspiring message. And and on the way home, he just said, hey, what would you think about us moving out and making our home a recovery residence?
And you had never said a word to him about it.
Never mentioned it.
Your daughter hadn't, anyone
No.
else that you had confided in about, and had not dropped a hint to him. Wow, what a God thing. That just gives me chills.
I said, I think that's what we should do. So anyway, we just
and that's how it all started.
we had made a fly by the seat of our pants decision like that already once, and that was when we adopted our daughter. It took about that same amount of time, maybe 45 seconds. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
And this felt the same way. So it worked out really well that time. So we were game to try it again.
It's just, we talk a lot on these episodes here at Authentically You with other guests about how walking in this Christ-centered purpose that you both are walking in is that you know that you know.
Yeah.
And God is not a God of confusion and chaos.
That's
and
true.
When you are walking in something He has divinely designed, there are struggles, there are challenges,
Sure.
but you have a peace about it.
Yeah,
You just have a peace
exactly.
about it. And I love that part of the story of how you were quiet and still, and you just waited for God to work out how it was going to happen. And He conditioned his heart, your husband's heart.
We talked to our kids about it, and they were okay. I don't know. They probably didn't think we would really go through with it. I think a lot of people didn't think we would really go
I
through
can remember
with it.
when you first told me, I distinctly remember, I don't know, I'm one of those people that what I'm thinking is pretty much on my face. There's usually not a lot of doubting about what I'm thinking because my mind thinks that I've got a different face, but usually I don't. And so I distinctly remember when you told me you were doing that, I know that my face was probably like, oh, that's a great idea, but that's crazy.
It is crazy. It's kind of a unique form of a midlife crisis, I think.
But that's okay. Your midlife crisis is going to help so many women.
Well, I
so
hope
many
so.
women. And it's near and dear to my heart what you're doing. Our listeners and viewers and subscribers know I have a day job. And my day job is in economic development and workforce development. And one of my favorite things about my day job, is getting to work with justice-involved individuals and the agencies that will hire those individuals. And you are so spot on that recidivism happens because there's not a program, there are not enough programs that deal with the whole individual.
That's right.
The whole individual. I mean, rehabilitation is rehabilitation from the top to the toes. It's not just about, learning how to behave well and obey laws. It's about breaking generational cycles of abuse and addiction and poverty and so much. And that's what I love about what OutsideIn is doing is you're touching the whole individual.
Yeah.
And even with a faith component as well. There are numbers, transitions here in Dyersburg you touched on, does a fabulous job with helping women establish that core value of a Christian
there are
faith.
There are people that can do recovery without faith. But there are a whole lot more people that will say, I had to come to the Lord before it really happened for me,
Right.
so.
Well, thank you so much. Do you have any success stories without naming names or individuals?
Oh, yeah,
Do you have a success
of
story you can
course.
tell us?
So one of my favorites is a young woman that came to work for me, and she had a real crisis of self-confidence. And she didn't really want to look at me in the face, and she couldn't say my name right, which it is a hard name. But she did not know how to sew. And she came to work, but man, she caught on so fast. I mean, she just took to it. And one day, as she was leaving on a Friday afternoon, I thought, I need to give her an atta girl. That's not my best thing, even though it's supposed to be. I mean, that's what I signed up for.
Right.
It's encouragement and support, and I find that I withhold that way too often. So I'm trying to do better. I'm working on that. But I thought, I'm going to tell her. So I said, hey, you really had a good week this week. I mean, we were firing on all the pistons. And I said, you really had a good week this week. And she looked back over her shoulder at me and she said, yes, I did. And I thought, that is what we're all about here.
That is fantastic.
I did a good job, and I know I did a good job.
And I feel good about
and I'm going
it.
to come back next week and I'm going to do
it all over again. That's fantastic. It's fantastic. What are some misconceptions do you think, especially in the rural communities? What are some misconceptions that you think that are out there about addiction recovery, and how are you aiming to kind of dispel some of those misconceptions?
Well, the biggest misconception is that it doesn't work, and recovery does work.
Yeah.
And I am inspired by those stories every week of people who have overcome. We know a person that works in recovery right now. He's a peer recovery support specialist, and his job is to help people find placement in treatment. And he goes about that like his hair's on fire. Mm-hmm. And yet he went to treatment 17 times.
Wow.
And most people would have given up on him. He probably wanted to give up on himself.
Right.
But he kept on, and he finally achieved long-term recovery and is now helping so many people. Mm-hmm. So recovery does work, and it works best when people have support from people in their community and their families and their friends.
Mm-hmm. I touched a bit ago about the day job and working with justice-involved individuals in the reentry into the workplace. Mm. But the majority of my experience and my exposure has been with male recoveries, mm-hmm. with homes for males, with agencies who are providing employment for men that have been and worked a little bit with transitions here in Dyersburg. Mm-hmm. There's another great one in Middle Tennessee that you're very familiar with, I'm sure, that has a social enterprise aspect of it as well, where they provide the jobs and they do fabulous work. How do you, being in the trenches of it, how do you think recovery and reentry is different for women?
Well, it's the children.
There you go.
It's the children, because what we find is that a woman may need treatment. And let's just say two different scenarios. Let's just say a woman with children needs treatment. If she still has her children with her, how's she going to manage that? Right. Is she going to try to find somebody to take care of her kids? Then there's this separation. That's not good for anybody or healthy. And so that's a real barrier for a woman that needs recovery. And often they'll choose staying with their children before they'll choose going to treatment where they have to leave their children in the care of someone else. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is a woman has lost custody of her children, but she wants to be reunited and she wants to be in recovery. But to go through that reunification process, she needs to stay logistically close to her children, to have meetings with them and work with DCS and the courts. So it's difficult for her to go to treatment 100, 200 miles away when she has these appointments, these things that she needs to see about in the reunification process. So that's the struggle for women. And that's the reason the program that we're going to have at the end, the Outside In with two ends.
Two ends, yeah.
Will allow women to bring their children with them if they're if they're under the age of 9.
That's going to be unique.
It is unique, and it's just it's for that very reason, because there are no treatment facilities in West Tennessee, in our area of West Tennessee, for women at all. Mm-hmm. And just to think that they've got to go a couple of 100 miles away is going to be a real barrier if they have children. So that's
amazing. That's amazing. So what are some of the biggest challenges today? Now, let's flip to the current day. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing right now in the social enterprise and in trying to establish the Inn? What are some of the biggest hurdles?
Well, personally, my biggest struggle probably is recognizing that I cannot do everything myself.
Yeah, oh, there you go.
My mother says my first sentence was, "I'll do it myselfie." And that has not always served me well, and it's not served me well at the current moment. But we have hired a program director for the Inn, a woman with all those beautiful skills that I do not have.
Met her; she's amazing.
Yeah, and that's going to be great. And I have an excellent board of directors. Of course, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and so we have an excellent board of directors. That I'm really starting to rely on more and more as time goes by. So just really navigating, just trying to realize that I do have to wear even now more hats is been the challenge, I think, in maintaining just some kind of perspective about what's the next thing that has to happen,
How have you evolved from the humble beginning days to today as the leader of the organization, as the founder?
Yeah, well, it's I think the thing that I've come to realize is the power of a positive word in somebody else's life, and the power of influence. And I think I've just recognized that because I have been out here doing this work for now 11 years, that I have learned enough things that I can help somebody else that wants to walk down the same road of social enterprise, recovery supports, and those kind of things, because heaven knows there's plenty out there for all of us to do. And I think just realizing that the gifts and abilities that God gave me, I have been able to use those in a way that He wanted me to. I mean, somebody asked me not long ago, "What are 3 truths about yourself?" And I knew them instantly. One was I see potential in everything, and 2 is I'm easily inspired, and 3 was I'm certain that I'm doing the work God made me to do, and so I think finding that purpose. I'm 62 years old. I started this when I was a little over 50. And most people, by the time they're that age, kind of got it figured out what I'm supposed to be doing.
No.
Well, I guess I didn't, but I do now.
Yeah, that is fabulous. It's such an inspiration, such an inspiration. And for listeners who are listening to us on Spotify and the other platforms versus our YouTube viewers, she doesn't look at all a day close to 62.
Well,
such a beautiful woman.
My hair was brown when I started that, by the way. It's not now.
Woman. So what do you say? Let's talk for a moment. Let's take it outside of you, and let's talk to that woman who is right now got her headphones in, got her AirPods in, listening to this, or she's found a moment or two to herself and she's listening to this, and maybe addiction recovery is not something she needs to start or wants to start. That's not her venue or avenue to walk down. But what do you say to that woman who is sitting somewhere with a dream or an idea of how they could make an impact and are doing their own thing? What do you say to them?
Well, I say they should just look at what they know they can do very well, what they would be capable of teaching somebody else to do, and that's really, I think, the starting place for, what do I need to do next with
Right.
this gift or ability that I have, and that may, that may just be taking care of their family. I stayed at home with my kids for a lot of years, and while I was doing that, I was really crafting my superpower. You know what that is?
Yeah.
Patience. Patience is my superpower. But I did not have, I could have never done this at 32.
Right.
It took that 30 years of parenting and learning patience and to be able to do what I do now. And so I think that if you just pay attention, that's I think a big thing in life is just pay attention. Pay attention to the people around you. Pay attention to what lights you up, what you feel passionate about, and because that's how God reaches down in our world,
Right.
I think, and accomplishes His purpose. So I think that's a big part of,
and
what you should do.
It's important to me in these episodes, regardless of what our theme is for the month, the resounding theme in every episode is always telling the stories of women who are walking out what they believe is their Christ-centered purpose at this moment in their life.
Right.
Which doesn't mean that's what it might be 20 years from now.
No.
And I think so often there is this misconception that if someone says they feel called to do something and then 10 years from now they're not doing that anymore, people frown upon that. And I'm like, well, then they weren't called to do that to begin with.
I thought I was
that's
supposed,
just not true.
I thought I was supposed to be a dentist. I went to dental school for 2 weeks. That didn't work out very well.
But you never thought, even 25 years
No.
ago, that you were that your Christ-centered purpose was going to be to run a social enterprise and help women through addiction and recovery. Did you? This is probably a question I should have asked at the beginning of the episode, but just to kind of back up, did you, in your personal journey through life, were you impacted in some way yourself?
Not in my early years, but now since I have become an adult and a parent, we have had people that, there are people I love that deal with addiction. And because no family is immune from that.
We would be hard pressed.
Yeah.
We would be hard pressed. We walked out on this street and just started polling people. We would be hard pressed to find someone who has not in any way ever been affected by it.
But I have lately, one of the things that has inspired me is a lady that's just come on my board of directors, and she, her mother had a struggle with alcoholism. And she did eventually recover, but my friend, my board member, says, I just can't help but wonder what my life would have been, how my life would have been different if my mother had had access to something like the Outside In.
Yeah.
And she said, we struggled for so long, but I think it could have made a real difference, and that's really motivated me a lot.
Yeah.
Just that story.
So that's a perfect lead into one of the next questions I had for you is, so how can individuals, organizations, companies, whomever, how can people come alongside Outside In to help?
Well, the main way right now is just to buy our products.
Right.
That's how we're going to support the women that. That's how we're going to pay them. That's how we pay them now. That's how we're going to pay them in the future, so that they can learn that work is not a four-letter word, so to speak, but it's a vehicle to have a means to take care of my family, to take care of myself, and so buying our products is a great way. And then just finding us on those social media channels. We're on Facebook and Instagram, and finding us there, and then liking and sharing what we're doing with other people. That's a huge thing for us, because back to that struggle, just being noticed and having attention to what we're doing is you never know when somebody will hear about you that has the ability to really make a difference in the organization,
Right.
whether it's being on the board or making a big donation. I mean, the women that come to our program will not pay to be there. It will be completely free to them. So we're going to have to depend on, private donations and grant funding from to keep our programming operational. So.
When do you anticipate the first resident to move into the house?
We thought that we might be ready this fall, but in the last few weeks, we've got an opportunity to make a proposal to get some funding to do some rehab work on the house. And it needs a little after 4 kids. And there's some things we'd like to remodel and expand, make the garage into a multi-purpose room. So we've carved out some really good projects that would really enhance the property. And so we're hoping we might get some of that funding. That's from the state of Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. So that's pushed us back a little bit. We're kind of holding.
Yeah.
We just got our proposal submitted this week, so we want to hold back and see. But we do have the program director hired. She's going to be out in the community doing some workshops and things with the
That should be the program director for the house, for
That's
the residential. And I think it's important to note, too, just to clarify in case anyone is getting their checkbook out of their purse and ready to send some money to OutsideIn. You and Judge Smith donated your home to the organization.
Right.
So you're not donating to rehab LeEllen's house. She no longer owns the house.
No.
She no longer owns the house.
That's been a difficult thing to convey to people. But anyway,
Yeah.
but no.
She no longer lives there. They don't live there. They've moved out of the home.
We're in an apartment now.
Yeah,
we
in a
went
loft
from
apartment.
4,500 square feet to I think about 8.
Yeah.
And we're just really getting to know one another all over again.
That's just fun. So much fun, though. Well, all right. Is there anything else that we have not touched on today that you'd like to share with us about the venture or about directing women in their path, in their faith journey?
Yeah, well, I think I would just say, if you are a person that's struggling with addiction, to get help. Very few people really achieve and maintain long-term sobriety and recovery without having a good support system. So, get a sponsor, go to meetings, go into treatment, do something to move forward with your life and break free. I know it's not easy, but it's so, we need you. We need you being the person that God made you to be and being part of our community and engaging.
And He designed every individual with a purpose.
That's right.
Every single individual with a purpose.
And He's not giving up on us.
No, He's not. So we have a signature question here at Authentically You with every episode that I like for our guests to leave us with a favorite scripture and tell us why that scripture is so special to you.
My favorite scripture is Micah 6:8, which just says, "Seek justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God," because that's pretty basic, and it's not always easy to walk that out, but it's I think is really speaks to me and what drives me, I think, and pushes me on to keep doing what I do.
It's a beautiful story, and I thank you so much for being here today to share that with us.
Yeah, I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. National Recovery Awareness Month. Reach out to any organization that you feel led to. I'm partial to OutsideIn if you want to make a donation or throw some support their way, but there are plenty of other wonderful programs in your communities, regardless of where you're from. September, again, National Recovery Month, and we want to celebrate the women who are succeeding in their recovery, and we want to extend our hand to those who are fighting their way up. And so thank you, LeEllen, for being here today. Thank you, listeners and viewers. We'll see you on the inside next time. Thank you for joining us today. We hope that you enjoyed that conversation. Be sure to hop over to AuthenticallyYouTN.com and subscribe to our email list to become an Authentically You insider. That's how you'll know when new releases of other episodes have dropped to our platforms and all other exciting news that we'll have to share about networking events, live recording episodes, and all kinds of fun things. Thank you for spending your time with us. I'm Malia Evans, your host of Authentically You. Have a great day.